Imagine waking up to headlines that claim a modern-day genocide is unfolding in South Africa. A video shared in the Oval Office by a world leader is said to show over 1,000 graves, each one, according to the claim, marking a white farmer murdered because of their race. Newsrooms buzz, social media erupts, international pressure mounts. But as new details emerge, the truth behind these images and narratives becomes anything but clear. Who truly controls the story, and what happens when misinformation travels faster than the facts? This is the story that goes far beyond the farms of South Africa. It's a tale of global narrative warfare, political maneuvering, and the life-or-death consequences that stem from it. Today, we dive deep into the heart of South Africa's farm murder debate. What's real, what's exaggerated, and how misinformation is reshaping politics, economics, and international perceptions in the 21st century. To truly understand this issue, we need to rewind. South Africa's modern reality is haunted by its turbulent history, a legacy still visible in its fields and fiercely debated in its parliament. Apartheid, that infamous system of racial segregation and economic exclusion, officially ended in the early 1990s. But its shadow remains long. One of the most visible scars? Land ownership. The vast majority of fertile farmland, even 3 decades on, is still owned by the white minority. This imbalance isn't just statistics. It's the source of deep social and economic tension, often erupting into heated national and global debates. As early as the late 1990s, the government moved to address these historical injustices. Land reform initiatives aimed to redistribute property, promote black economic empowerment, and heal a fractured nation. But progress was slow, and for many, painfully so. Frustration simmered, and with it rose suspicion. Would the government seize land by force? Would there be compensation? Or would the process spiral into chaos, as it once did in Zimbabwe? Enter the expropriation without compensation policy, or EWC. Proposed as a remedy to speed up the transfer of land, EWC remains mired in controversy and legal battles. While large-scale seizures have not materialized, the specter of them haunts investors and rural communities alike. The policy stirs emotions not just in South Africa but overseas, where diaspora groups and foreign politicians watch with alarm or anticipation. The issue is a lightning rod. But if land is the stage, the crisis of violence is the drama that keeps everyone on edge. Farm attacks, sometimes fatal, often brutal, are a terrifying reality for those living in rural South Africa. The numbers are grim, though frequently disputed. In 2023, AgriSA, the country's largest agricultural body, reported 47 farm murders, a decrease from 64 the previous year. While any murder is one too many, these figures are a far cry from the hundreds or even thousands evoked by viral videos or alarmist headlines. And yet, the narrative of a white genocide persists, especially in online spaces and foreign media. Some lobby groups, like AfriForum, amplify the issue internationally, warning of targeted attacks against white farmers and urging foreign governments to take notice. Their campaigns are sophisticated, built for the digital age, well-produced videos, press releases, and lobbying trips to Washington and Brussels. This campaign found a willing audience in some unexpected places. In 2024, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, publicly shared a video with South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa. The video, filled with solemn music and stark imagery, showed a memorial of more than 2,500 white crosses. Trump claimed, before cameras, that these crosses marked a mass burial for murdered white farmers. The reality, as was quickly pointed out by local journalists and international agencies, was more nuanced. The memorial was erected to honor a farming couple killed in 2020. Many crosses were symbolic. The site was not, as claimed, the burial place of over 1,000 victims. Yet, the damage was done. Are you disputing that those crosses are for people who were racially persecuted? Snapped White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt when challenged by a journalist. The exchange quickly became a viral moment, emblematic of the new information wars playing out in real time. The Associated Press, Reuters, and BBC all weighed in, debunking, clarifying, contextualizing. But the image, the simple, gut-wrenching field of crosses, lingered in the public mind, often stripped of complexity. Why did this story catch fire? Part of the answer lies in history, but more comes from the current state of global media. In an era of outrage-driven news cycles and algorithmic feeds, the most shocking story often wins, even if it's not the most accurate. South Africa's land and security issues are a messy tangle. Economic inequality, generational mistrust, political promises, and yes, real dangers in rural areas. But nuance rarely goes viral. There's another side to this coin. The South African government is adamant farm attacks are not a deliberate campaign of racial extermination. Instead, officials classify them as part of broader rural crime, harsh, tragic, and real, but not focused on a single demographic. To call this a genocide is not only factually wrong, it's deeply damaging to our efforts at reconciliation, said one government spokesperson in 2024. Human Rights Watch echoes this. Their latest report insists, all South Africans, including farmers, deserve protection from violence, but we must be guided by data, not hysteria. In fact, overall murder rates in South Africa remain staggeringly high, affecting black and white communities alike. Rural crime is symptomatic of broader social ills, poverty, inadequate policing, and fractured trust between communities and the authorities. Yet, perception shapes reality. International attention, fueled by headlines and hashtags, puts pressure on South Africa's leaders. Some foreign politicians, especially in the US and Australia, have called for intervention, or at the very least, economic and diplomatic consequences. Investors, always wary of instability, read every tweet and headline as a potential risk signal. The consequences are real: reduced confidence, lower agricultural investment, and migration of skills and capital. Uncertainty around land reform is eating away at investor confidence, says Dr. John Smith, a leading land policy expert. If reforms are too abrupt or poorly planned, agriculture could collapse, but do nothing, and the anger and risk only intensifies. This is the dilemma: how to address decades-old injustices without creating new ones, and how to ensure security for all while resisting narratives that stoke division. South Africa is walking a tightrope, and the world is watching, sometimes with empathy, sometimes with schadenfreude, and sometimes with outright misinformation. On the ground, solutions are hard-won. Some communities have banded together to improve farm security. Civil society groups, churches, and local governments are trying to build bridges between black and white residents, tackling not just crime, but the underlying causes: economic exclusion, lack of education, and historical trauma. It's painstaking work, but it's happening, out of the spotlight, away from the clickbait. Meanwhile, legal battles over land reform rage on. The courts are flooded with challenges to EWC and other policies. International organizations keep close watch, monitoring for human rights violations or economic catastrophe. And all the while, South Africa's police, underfunded, overextended, struggle to patrol vast rural areas. The odds are steep. And so, the conflict deepens, not only on the ground, but within the global imagination. Is South Africa a warning sign, a potential replay of Zimbabwe? Or is it a nation genuinely confronting its past, trying to do better, but constantly undermined by external and internal misinformation? Here's the bitter twist. Both extremes, the denial of any problem and the exaggeration of crisis, fuel paralysis. While the world argues about statistics and stories, the real work of building safer, fairer communities struggles for attention and resources. As a result, both farmers who feel abandoned and communities demanding justice are left in the lurch. So, who really benefits from stoking these divisions? Is it local politicians, eager to distract from other failures? International actors hungry for a new Cold War proxy? Or just media platforms chasing the next viral hit? As we stand at this crossroads, one question demands an answer. Will South Africa find a path to reconcile its painful past with a stable, inclusive future? Or will outside forces and viral half-truths push it into deeper crisis? That's what we'll explore in the second half of this journey. Let's look forward. What might the future hold for South Africa as it stands at the crossroads of land, legacy, and the fight for truth itself? The world's gaze remains fixed on South Africa. Misinformation, whether it's viral images of white crosses misrepresented as mass graves or dramatic declarations in foreign capitals, has far-reaching, unpredictable consequences. The risks are not confined to the farms or the borders of South Africa. A single narrative, broadcast to millions, can ripple into investment decisions, diplomatic tensions, and even unrest on the ground. Most experts agree that while farm attacks are a real and ongoing tragedy, to frame the violence as a targeted genocide is not only inaccurate, it's dangerous. As Dr. John Smith, a noted land reform expert, warns, oversimplifying the crisis fuels division and obscures the urgent need for practical solutions. South Africa stands now before several possible futures. In one scenario, progressive land reform is carried out with transparency, consultation, and genuine engagement among all stakeholders: farmers, communities, government, and international partners. Imagine a South Africa where land redistribution is handled fairly, with compensation and support for both former owners and new beneficiaries. In this vision, farms thrive, food security is protected, and the ghosts of history begin to rest. This future demands political courage and honest storytelling, but it is absolutely possible. Yet the darker path remains a risk. If divisive myths continue unchecked, if claims of white genocide and racial hatred dominate headlines, the result may be deepening polarization. Social trust erodes. Vigilantism may increase as communities arm themselves out of fear. Investment in agriculture dries up, further straining an already fragile economy. Political parties, sensing opportunity, could stoke emotions instead of seeking compromise. Under this scenario, South Africa's future is one of suspicion, stagnation, and simmering unrest. Internationally, there's a third possibility: mounting pressure from global institutions, human rights organizations, and even foreign governments. This scrutiny is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can encourage accountability, spotlighting rights abuses and pushing for safety and justice. On the other, it can fuel nationalist backlash, reinforce suspicions about outside interference, and even provoke isolationism. As political analyst Aisha Dubé cautions, the world's concern must be based on fact, not fear. Otherwise, it will do more harm than good. Where do things stand right now? Recent years have seen a modest decline in farm murders according to AgriSA, 47 in 2023, down from 64 in 2022. Many attribute this drop to improved community policing initiatives and tighter security cooperation between farmers and local police. Still, for those living in rural areas, anxiety remains a constant. The much-discussed expropriation without compensation, EWC policy, meanwhile, continues to generate uncertainty. Despite the heated rhetoric, large-scale land seizures have not materialized. But the threat, real or perceived, hangs over the agricultural sector, deterring investors and scaring off new entrants to farming. Several legal challenges to EWC test the policy's constitutionality and its possible economic consequences. At the grassroots level, hope grows in unlikely places. Across South Africa, diverse communities are experimenting with new forms of cooperation: joint farming ventures, neighborhood watch schemes, programs that bring together white and black farmers to share expertise and resources. These efforts rarely make global headlines, but they may prove to be the seeds from which lasting peace is grown. In the end, South Africa's future will not be determined solely by its government or by the loudest voices on international platforms. It will be shaped by the millions of South Africans who refuse to let their story be hijacked by misinformation or hate. What practical lessons can we draw from this tangled reality? And what can you, watching from thousands of kilometers away, actually do? First, challenge the headlines. Misinformation thrives in an environment of shock and outrage. Before sharing that viral story or jaw-dropping statistic about South Africa, pause. Look for credible sources. Seek out data, not just emotion. In the words of Human Rights Watch, accurate information is the foundation of accountability. Second, understand the complexities beneath the surface. South Africa's land question is not just about who owns a farm today. It's about centuries of dispossession, a painful legacy of apartheid, and the monumental task of building a fair society out of the ruins. Simplistic narratives, whether of black vengeance or white victimhood, serve nobody except those who profit from division. Third, recognize the universal patterns. The South African case is not unique. Across the world, we see how old wounds, if left unaddressed, become breeding grounds for new conflicts. We see how political actors, domestic and foreign, can weaponize fear for their own gain. We see how facts can be twisted, images manipulated, and history distorted to serve a cause. Fourth, support efforts that bridge divides instead of widening them. Whether financially through advocacy or simply by amplifying the voices of those working for reconciliation, you can make a difference. South Africa's best hope lies in the courage of ordinary people, farmers, activists, neighbors, who reject the easy answers and keep searching for common ground. Finally, think about the power you wield as a consumer of information. The algorithms that shape your social media feed thrive on outrage and confirmation bias. By being a skeptical, thoughtful participant, you weaken the power of misinformation, not just in South Africa, but everywhere. So, can South Africa overcome the myths that threaten to tear it apart? The answer, hard-won, uncertain, but hopeful, is yes. Not easily, not quickly, but step by step, as ordinary people insist on truth, as legal battles clarify what land reform will look like, and as brave storytellers push back against sensationalism, South Africa writes a new chapter. Will it become the model for reconciliation, showing the world how to heal after historic injustice? Or will it stumble, hamstrung by suspicion and myth? The choice lies in the balance between fact and fiction, between division and dialogue. There's a secret history at work here, often overlooked by those who focus only on violence or policy debates. It's the story of small villages where former enemies now farm side by side, of classrooms where children learn a fuller, truer national narrative, of police officers and citizens, black and white, determined to protect one another. This is the slow work of nation building, messy, unglamorous, but ultimately transformative. And that's why what happens in South Africa matters far beyond its borders. Because wherever you live, the battle between myth and reality, between easy outrage and difficult truth, is playing out around you too. If you want to help, start by being a guardian of truth. Read widely, question everything, and never mistake a viral story for reality on the ground. If you want to make a difference, share voices that build, not break. And if you want South Africa to succeed, remember, healing from history is possible, but only if we all play our part. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What surprised you most about South Africa's farm crisis? How do you spot misinformation in your own life? And here's that secret fact we uncovered. While international headlines often focus on division, dozens of South African farms are now jointly owned and operated by black and white farmers, working together, not as enemies, but as partners. Their quiet success